Hello, 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 and welcome to the Mystic Nerd Squad podcast. I am your host, Kelly Meyerson, the original Mystic Nerd, and I am prepared today to geek out in a big way. We have talked about irrigenics and the eye. We have talked about the properties of water. Today, we are going to talk about the healing properties of sound. My guest, Jill Mattson, is a prolific artist, musician, author, expert, and sound healing composer. 16 intriguing and magical CDs using ancient and modern techniques and special healing frequencies. Jill is a 5-time author awarded Best Music and Book of the Year, 7 gold and 3 silver awards from COVR. Jill was featured at hundreds of teleseminars and on over 1,000 radio shows and magazines, including covers. She offers an online sound healing school, free music, and School of Sound Healing at jillswingsofflight.com. Free music to boost your immune system here. Jill, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
I'm always excited to talk about this.
My creative juices and questions are flowing because I'm thinking for myself. I've had some really inspiring guests, particularly this season, and thinking about all of the work that I've done working on nervous systems and helping with calming and healing and focus and all of that. And just before we came on, listener, I'll tell you, I could have spent all day talking to Jill, and I had to stop myself from asking all the questions so we could actually get to the actual recording of this podcast episode. And Jill, I'm going to have to say we have so much content that we could cover that I may have to ask you politely to come back and talk again. And we haven't even started talking yet. So I want to start where I typically start with my guests. And I want to know, when did your journey and interest in sound begin?
I was about 40. Goodness, that was over 30 years ago. And my middle son won a contest. He's 8, and he did an essay, and he got to see Bill Gates. And this was a big deal. It was a publicity stunt, a company that Bill Gates had hired, to have him around the children. Anyway, Lee won this contest out of 100,000 kids. And he just answered an essay, Imagine the Magic of a Computer. Now, this is 40 years ago. Okay, computers are new. And he comes, I had just had a baby, and he's 8. And he and his older brother would watch the baby when I did the dishes. And he really hated that because he liked to play computer games. That's what life was for. So he just imagined a computer that did a hologram of a mother outside the playpen to fake the baby. So all good little boys, brothers, could go play computer games. No, this is 40 years ago. Quite inventive. I stole his idea. I thought it was so cool. And it was a big deal because it was a lot of attention. And I applied it to the Bible. I was fairly conservative Christian at that time and very sincere. And I decided that the Old Testament would look better from an autobiography because, it's like we can say, oh, why does God allow children to starve? But he can say there's enough food on the earth to feed you all 4 times over. When are you going to share? So I'm writing this Bible and rewriting it from an autobiography. And it's like a computer hologram. It's just like my son's idea. So this is all a simulation. And so I start with the Old Testament. And I've never really read the Old Testament cover to cover. And I'm writing this in autobiography. I'm appalled. I mean, God is PMS. He's judgmental. I mean, he toys with us. And I just decided, okay, God's love for me. And when I see God punishing someone for not killing them all, like in the Old Testament, I'm sorry, count me out. And it was a big shift. And I was psychic within a dime. I mean, it's like I walked down from that thought and I was seeing visualizations, hearing things. My whole life, just like that, opened up. And I started then looking for ideas of God as love. So I started with Christianity and with the Babylonian time period, and then I got into the Kabbalah, and then I got into Sumeria next, and Babylonian, and then I got into Egypt, and I spent. I'm a geek. So
Perfect. I love that.
no, I can read a text today and retain. I am a major geek, and I am reading thousands of books over a 10, 15-year period. And I'm reading them about their ideas of God and love from all these ancient texts. I get great ideas. But in addition, I'm a musician since knee-high to the grasshopper. And they're all using music to grow their crops, to get their villages to get along, to settle disputes, to handle like rehab for someone who's done something atrocious. They're using sound and music for status, for wealth, for power, for armies, for pancreas music, for balancing their astrology, for any type of mental or emotional problem, even emotional problems, they're balancing it. They're using music to like even alter genes and alter personalities. They're using it for everything. And being a musician, I was properly trained and classically trained. They didn't have our university has no clue about classical music. It's rooted thousands and thousands of years ago. It's purposely done to bring in chi, to bring in life force, to bring in certain talents, to balance and take away energy blockages. It's got incredible power when you know what you're doing. And I found that by going this 15, 20-year period going around the globe, and it's all old. So like the healing modalities out of the Sanskrit Hindu stuff is much different than Chinese. It's different than Sumeria. I mean, it's all different. And it's like they all had mystery schools. And this is the secret knowledge, which is power, like top of the food chain power kind of thing. And you couldn't get into a mystery school unless they approved of your morality. At least that's the idea. And so, of course, it's always rich people trying to buy their way in. And, I think that's why Socrates died. He took the poison rather than let some immoral person learn his secrets. And that's the way it was. This was very prized. But just like you go and see a trailer in a movie, and they show you a really good part to get you to go, each mystery school would dangle like a couple little techniques out there saying, whoa, we're hot stuff. And so I would just go from society side and I'm picking them all up. And after about 10, 15 years, I think I got a real good picture about how you can heal and change everything with sound. And I do it. I offer my CDs and my books and my classes.
Oh, I love that. I love that you were so inspired by just that one moment with your son and diving in. And then it became looking at the Bible as an autobiography and saying, you know what, this is not cool. Like I need just a different take on this. This does not resonate. That's kind of amazing to me because I think, especially when you've grown up in a church and there's a lot of conditioning that happens, a lot of standards and expectations. And having that individual thought was probably at the time for you such a departure from what had always seemed like this is how I'm supposed to take this at face value. And with
it was
just
also humbling that it's like I had this book just about written and it took that for me to change my mind and like just flush dogma.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Just look at my own heart and not view the world from anybody else's perspective. Looking like my eyeballs are in my heart.
Yeah. I love that so much because I think that is very often where these magical journeys begin for people, when they begin to trust the voice inside more than the voices outside and say, I think this is something. This is what I need to follow. And I'm also an avid reader. There's just not enough time in the day to read all the books, but I love that you committed to those 10 to 15 years of reading all the texts and going down all of the rabbit holes and, looking at what was there. So you go down all these rabbit holes. When does it become for you something where you're now composing the music, not just reading about how it was used in the past?
Well, as I said, I've been a musician since I've been 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe in past life, I've been classical composer. I was able, maybe 5 years after that, just to sit down and I knew how to write symphony. I don't know how I knew, but I'm very good at it. And no one taught me and no one needed to teach me. So I just sat down and did it. I also channel. And I also believe that everybody, I don't think I'm special. I think the only thing is that I'm aware that I'm channeling, whereas I think everybody is. And let me give you a point. I believe Joel Sternheimer, he's a physicist, maybe a little older than me, and he lives in France. But anyway, he went to Harvard or some Princeton, one of them, and he spent his life measuring the frequencies of amino acids in plants.
Mm.
So again, you can even look at them under a microscope and see how far they move and calculate the frequency. And the songs of many local species in France were like O Solo Mio. I mean, they were recognizable songs. Not only were they pleasant songs, but they're in our music repertoire, which to me meant the composer was sitting in a field, maybe with all these little clovers, who are singing in volume below our hearing range. And he's just kind of dreamy, intuitive state. He's coming up with song lines, and it's like they resonates with this little plant, and boom, there's your song. And there's a case where we're inspirited and we're surrounded with consciousness and love and life things. And I guess I learned, because I'm a channeler, just to trust and allow.
Mm.
And so it's not really me doing the music, it's music coming through me. And then a couple other times, I wrote these songs, okay, and here's me composing. Da, 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 oh, I like this, not too scientific, And then afterwards, I looked at what I wrote, and you could graph it. It was a flower, it had structure, it was mathematical, it had formulas in it.
Yeah.
I was just kind of daydreaming.
Yeah.
That's not, maybe I'm co-creating, but I think that all music, because it comes through me, but I think all musician and art, I just think we're inspirited. And what's really cool, I have a book called The Lost Waves of Time, in which I go into all these ancient music and music healing modalities, not found anywhere, should be in university. And I noticed that the patterns change sequentially over time. So, like the Chinese had a pattern of 5. They honored 5. Their music had 5 notes. Generally, it would have, be 5 minutes long. I mean, everything was 5 instruments. And, that was done for several thousands of years. The Greek come in with their tetrachords, which is basically a combination of 4 notes. And they do that and nothing but that. That is the music. They're creating wave cancellation patterns. 5, they're doing great, cool things with that music. But when you look at the legends, the music starts out 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're at 1 today with a rap, with the rhythm and the pitch. And so my new book coming out shortly is on time, because I couldn't think how in the world has music been orchestrated to follow this number pattern. Nobody's keeping track. And if somebody did, how could you enforce it? I mean, this number pattern I found was global and back for thousands of years. And I finally decided that time's movable energy, fact. You can, science has put atomic clocks on a plane and left some down on the ground. The speed of time literally changes, meaning has frequency. And so my theory in that book was it's harmonics, like time is a a harmonic chain. It has frequency. And that's why some day is a good day, another day not. Because sometimes those frequencies are dissonant, sometimes they're more pleasant, sometimes maybe the frequency of zinc and your cold gets better, or if you don't have a cold, you don't even notice. But the time actually is a thing, and that music has over the ages balanced it. And so you can see the rise and the fall of civilizations because literally they have a beginning and end in time and frequency. And when their time's up, when their number's up, they crumble, and in comes the new tone, the new civilization, the new art. And I found, and they tracked not just the music changes throughout time, but also the art and the architecture. And you'll see first comes in the music, then comes in societal art, like think back to the Victorian area. You're coming out of the Dark Ages. And then you have people like Mendelssohn and Bach, and they're doing their truly frilly little things. In comes the Victorian architecture. In comes the frilly dresses. You know, but the music is the more potent, vibratory tonic. And it's like life is like the Pied Piper. And music and time, you know, they're playing. We may not hear it because it's too low in volume, but we're following it. And it like leads us through experiences, lessons, exposure to like rainbow colors, to all the lessons, to master all the motions, to master our body in all ways. And because they all link, every tone links to something in your body. It links to an emotion, it links to a thought. And the ancient people knew this. And they were using them prescriptively. They were also had like the Hindu particularly had an idea that all health is a blockage. And so you've got two wave patterns kind of coming together, and they're building up and energy can't flow. And so they had a way of creating wave patterns in music where the high and the low meet at the same time and they cancel out. And then they'd move them up in pitch to match the blockage in your body. I mean, it was just, their Ayurvedic music is incredible. And they're also, because you mentioned something about rhythm patterns when we talked earlier, they also use rhythm patterns. They have maybe 144. Western world has maybe uses primarily two, 3/4 and 4/4. They have 144 different patterns, and they use them prescriptively because they're saying like your digestion, your different formulas, your different thoughts, your different feelings. They have different patterns, and everything needs balance. So
wow.
Anyway.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. I have had this little tap on my shoulder from spirit and intuition wants to bring up. I remember a couple years ago, maybe a few years ago, there was a recording circulating. Someone slowed down crickets, the sound of crickets, and played it so it was more like you could hear the nuances to their sound, and it actually sounds a bit like an orchestra. And so it's making me think, like, I've always loved the sound of crickets. I find it so soothing. What is it to that creates that soothing nature? Do you remember this
we're
recording?
all one. We
Yeah.
just hear it and we perceive separateness. So let's say you take a tone, and let me get this straight. I think if you take it up 3 octaves, our voices are going to sound like crickets. If you take it up 5 octaves, our voice sound like bird chirps.
Right.
If you take our voices up 7 octaves, it sounds like dolphins. If you take our voices up 9 octaves, it sounds like whales. If you take our voices up 11 octaves, we sound like the soundtracks that you can buy off of NASA. And we're all one. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. The ancients were very aware that like our voices is a combination of 1,000 frequencies in our body. That's why when we get sick or angry or upset or whatever, our voice changes. So we think our voice is one thing, it's 1,000 things. And just like you hear the sound of the human voice, and within that is all of this huge span of nature going from right here on earth all the way up to the heavens. It's like there's an undercoating, and that undercoating is perhaps quantum energy, dark matter. I don't know. The ancients would have called it ether or chi or life force or prana. Million words for it. But they're all suggesting that there's a quantum field underneath everything that feeds us, and that our body actually gets fed via our chakras through this field.
Wow. Wow. I'm totally following what you're saying and simultaneously feeling completely blown away by that.
Here's a little tidbit too, taking a little further. So think about your head like a drum. Okay. So let's say you and I have pretty long faces, but let's say there's someone over here who's kind of a round face. So when sound goes into my brain, it's maybe this kind of a shape, and it's going to ricochet off. And the places where there's going to be wave cancellation patterns that build up, aka blockages, in this round brain is going to be different than my brain that's maybe a little longer. So we're going to have different, you and I are going to have different wave cancellations because our skull shape's a little different. It's like a drum. The ancient Greeks created scales, and they, like the Catholic Church, burned all their stuff and then recreated. They didn't know anything. But the scales are called like Dorian or Mixolydian. Those were locations. Dorian's an island of people descended from Egypt that were very straight-laced. Mixolydian were kind of funny, so they had kind of a lot of, and they had tribes then that were more ingrained, so that the tribes looked alike, acted alike. And every personality has its ups and its downs. So all of the Greek scales were modifying the personalities of all their tribes. So let's say the straight-laced Dorians, a little too uptight and proper, they're going to move where pi fits in their head by switching its pitch. And therefore, it's going to ricochet and have different locations of wave cancellation patterns. And let me say it another way. Just think I have ADHD, and I got this place in my brain, way too much. Now, if I find that pitch and I calm it down with a wave cancellation pattern, there's my ADHD problem solved. But the sound is it's not a perfect panacea. It's a tool. So I could also have wave accumulation in the same spot where I have ADHD and get worse. But these people were using it in an intelligent way to alter the genetic patterns, modify their people, make them better citizens, create virtues. I have music. I copied that one too. I have music to create virtues and get rid of hardship and pain. They were using music for everything.
I love this.
History books, they just pick up like I said, the classical music, and they do not understand what they're doing.
Wow. I want to take you back because you're hitting one of my high interests, the ADHD, and wave cancellation patterns for helping minimize that. I have ADHD. Didn't know until my 40s that I had ADHD, but makes a lot of sense now. So I know my brain patterns, and this is very typical of ADHD, we have something called the default mode network, and it's way more lit up in people who are on the neurodivergent scale than, we're going to say quote unquote typical brain, but understanding that is also a spectrum. But that area is more lit up. And what happens is that's where we get that looping of thoughts and like a flood of thoughts, and you can't stop the thoughts from flowing. If I need to do something else with my brain and I have a lot of thoughts flowing in my brain, the first thing I'm going to do is listen to some music. And I tend to pick things that are a little more rhythmic. I tend to not really be able to listen to lyrics because then it hits my creativity zone and I'm like listening to the lyrics and listening for the patterns and all that. It's more so something rhythmic, instrumental that's going to help me focus. And I almost feel like when I start listening, I go into a very high level of hyper focus for what I'm focusing on, and I can get that thing done. And it's a lot less effortful in that I'm not having to say to my brain, okay, don't think about that, think about this. Stop thinking about that, think about this. I don't have to consciously focus myself. The focus happens and I just have to do the work. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Well, a couple of things let me say. Rhythm is really important. And think that your heartbeat, your circulation, your breathing, these are all rhythm patterns. Even your digestion, this formula, it's a chemical formula. This creates this, creates this, creates that. Well, that's a rhythm pattern. And when anything is chaotic, that's lack of health. When your brain is listening to, let's say, random noise, it's tiring because your brain is by natural searching for patterns. And when there are none, it's kind of like ODing, looking for that calmness. So that I understand looking for the rhythm pattern. And you could even, like the shamans would even do things like, let's say you have a ADHD and they would kind of match their rhythm and then they'd slow it down. So they would entrain with it like a drum circle. And the next thing you know, and then your brain's going to pull with this as well. So I understand that completely. And then the other thing, there's a difference in harmonics. So harmonics are after ripples of sound. So something like a harp is going to calm down. I have ADHD too. We will calm down with that kind of music because it's not so engaging. Whereas I'm a violinist. And, if you really get in there on the violin solo where you are focused, hyper, start to cry. I mean, that instrument can cry. So there's and the difference between a harp and a violin is the harmonics. It's like this after ripple of pound. And a nice thing about the nerves is the selecting instruments that disengage the brain. And then what the Greeks were doing is that they were creating phi, which is just a number. It's a letter in the Greek alphabet. It's when you look at the Fibonacci circles, the two neighboring numbers if divided create phi. It's just a wave cancellation pattern. So so if you could think of something trying to grow and you cancel some of the waves, it's gonna go this way. And there's your tree branch pattern. And so, but that canceling of the wave can be changed and used for different benefits. And I don't know how the Greeks did it, but they were moving it in your brain to alter things like the ADHD. And I did copy that in my, as best I could, in my Healing Flower Symphonies. So what I did was they approached all healing through mental health. And so like no worry, no ulcer. And so I went in and I picked 12 emotions. I picked them off of Edmund Bach of the Flower Remedies because he spent his whole life on emotion. And, these 12, the soul flowers, will clear the human emotional body. So I picked those flowers. And then, so like it's fear to trust. So the music's fearful and then it's trusting. And then I sunk the whole thing with frequencies of flower remedies. So fear, the music sounds fearful, it'll find it, maybe annoy you, and it loosens it. And then when you go into trust, it pops right off. So if you listen over 6 months, those people that are numb, that don't feel much, that have had a lot of trauma and pain, this will reset your system. And let me also say that when people get cancer and you look at all the frequencies in the body, they're numb. So I would say cancer in general are lovely, nice people that are kind and considerate and let people step all over them. And you see it in the tones because they just disappear. So you really want to have and restore all the frequencies in your body. And that's particularly what this does. And then so I do it there. And then I also approach it differently in another recent musical edition called Mindful Bliss. And in here, I went in looking from calming down, energizing, getting rid of brain fog, brain health, oxytocin, getting out and being social and bonding. So I have these different categories. And I took all the brain chemicals, the neurochemicals, the biochemicals, the amino acids, the proteins, whole nine yards. What your brain needs for each one of those functions. And it's hundreds of frequencies. And I put it in some beautiful music. So if you get the mindful bliss music, it goes in and it kind of resets, reestablishes, balances out the brain. That was my idea.
You see, luckily I have this view. So while you're speaking, we just see you and you don't see me with my jaw hitting the floor because I'm just losing it with my nerding out over here because this is just so cool. I love this. So I want to get to a little bit more of the practical for the listener who is like, wow, Jill, this is amazing. I love the history and stuff, but where do I start? I'm a listener and I've never thought about music this way, but I maybe have some emotional things going on, some physical things going on. I'm thinking of a lot of the women I know who are going through perimenopause and menopause and how, you really start to lose some of the harmony in your body. What's a good place to start?
Well, I have a book, Ancient Sounds, Modern Healing, which is an introduction with maybe 13 to 15 different ways to heal with sound and some very accessible, powerful, free or very low cost techniques. Then I have a book about the work of Sherry Edwards, who can hear your cells talking. She's got deformed ears. And because of her enhanced hearing, she can come up with tones that balance you out, that get rid of your disease, so to speak. And so I have a whole book on her work because she makes it accessible to you in her software. And then I have a book on the lost ways of time, which is the one about the history. And then I have one, Home of Power, because my clarion audience really opened up and I could hear my room. And so I could hear the chair and I could see that if I picked up my messes and, maybe did some energy work or sound technique and change shapes and objects. I mean, I could even build the energy of a goal I want to achieve in my room because that's sound. It's frozen wave patterns. And there's a science to it. So that's the Home of Power. And then I got 2 more books shortly coming out. But I have 16 CDs. And they are like, some of them bring in light. Like some of them have star patterns. So enhance the growth of your crops, your plants, your dogs, your animals. I've had some miraculous healing reported to me from animals on this one. And then I have one with Fibonacci, with wave cancellation, with solfeggio, and I got a new book coming out on that. Anyway, and then I have them on, music for your organ, for your pancreas, for your liver, for your spleen, for your brain, whatever you want. And ancient methods of, from the Chinese, they had meditation methods to tune and connect and know your organs. And then I go into like the names of God in ancient traditions. I have the names of God, and there is something called gematria that converts numbers to letters, but they also had numbers and letters to frequencies, which I guess I remembered. And so I have a CD on divine invitations on the 72 names of God. So we have na. They're more like tonal patterns, think of wind chimes. And then if, this particular name of God or angel of God, they're one and the same, is associated with orange, lemons, yellow, green, citron, whatever. They're all frequencies and they're all in that. And then I have Seasons in the Sky, which is the zodiac in tones. And this is Sumerian. And they use the zodiac as prescriptive, not necessarily predictive. Mm-hmm. So if you had a certain birth code, they would know, like your medical astrology, they would know where your health weaknesses is. And then they associate them with tones. And the Chinese did this too. So did the Egyptians. So they would associate it with tones, and they would change the tones throughout time, because I'm assuming they knew time was a frequency and change frequency. And so I have the music of the ancient music correlations of the zodiac, which is the musical, it's like a xylophone up there. And then I take the frequencies from NASA and satellites of stars in that system. So literally connecting you to that star system, and also the ruling planets. That one, I think I got the planet frequencies by physics. So it's just a real nice thing. And then I combine that with what I call a voice record from my website. So with Sherry Edwards software, thank you, Sherry, you can look at every frequency in your body. And not only that, but I can graph them. So here's how many C's you have, here's how many C sharps. And then I use the zodiac music to take your physical, mental, and emotional imbalances and bring them into check. You ingest sound. So if I play the frequency of niacin, your face flushes. If you're low on the musical note D, and I play a song in D, and I look at your voice before and after, you'll see after you've listened to D, you got a little bit more D. Listen again, you get a little bit more D. And it's a matter of dosage. So what I'm doing is, in that particular CD, I'm measuring your imbalances, and I'm providing a playlist that balances you. I know I have more. I'm not thinking. I have one with crystals. I have crystal frequencies. That one's very uplifting. I have the name of God. This is a cool one. There's a geneticist, Dean Hammer, who discovered what he called the God gene, only found in people like the Dalai Lama, and he scientifically classifies what's a spiritual, evolved person, measures them, find they all have this gene, and it's a frequency, and it has protein and activators. And again, Sherry Edwards gave me those frequencies, and so I have a whole CD that builds your God gene.
Whoa.
And the activators and proteins. I mean, there's so much you can do with sound.
Yeah.
It goes back to the joints for your muscles, tissues, bones. I just finished a detox thing on U Wealth Revolution. And I have 176 frequencies to detox your nerves, your brain, your muscles, for this, for that. I don't know. Sounds just.
I'm blown away, Jill, because I'm just thinking, you touched on so many different areas, whether somebody is on a physical healing journey, a mental healing journey, a spiritual journey. How do we do this for ourselves so we don't feel so overwhelmed? Like where do we go? Do I think to myself, you know what, I think I just need an overall detox in my body, and just start with listening to the detox music? Is there a like kind of a baseline of how to start? How do we prescribe it properly for ourselves?
I would say anything that you think you need, or you in heartfelt feel attracted to. There are 16 CDs. Music is so cheap, so reusable. And I would just go there and pick what draws to you. You have to listen for quite a time, because the dosage is important. Like, you can't eat one healthy meal for your entire life and expect to stay healthy. So my earlier ones, they tune you up and they take you back to homeostasis. Some of my later ones, the back to the joints, the brain, and the detox, I'm actually trying to give frequencies for your body to not just come into homeostasis, but to maintain it for some time. So it lasts longer. It doesn't mean it lasts forever, but it lasts longer. And I would just pick them. And it's nothing to have to listen for 6 months. Like for the Healing Flower Symphonies, we've all been through so much trauma. Most people release for 6 months. Now, I had some ladies who did my Deep Wave Beauty CD, which is collagen, vitamins for your skin and the muscles of your face and neck and body. And yes, it does work, but you need to listen. So, here's a great story. Some lady wrote me, and she was going to a high school reunion. So she listened to the music for 24/7. It doesn't have to be loud. You don't have to pay attention to it. low volume when you sleep, your ears don't go to sleep. She listened for a week, and yes, she looked younger. But her exciting point of the letter she sent me was that at the beginning of the week, she was in a walker because of all these failed knee surgeries. She walked to her high school reunion. And I got all excited because actually the frequencies I put were in the face and the neck. That's where I was at in my vanity journey. So anyway, what I found was these numbers are octaves of the whole body, and energy transfers through octaves. So unbeknownst to me, this is why I say things are channeled and, we are gifted, um, not earning it, receiving it. And unbeknownst that that will tune every muscle in your entire body. And that was a week, 24/7. And she restored that to whole. So that, that one, she's not going to have to do that kind of listening in the future unless she wants to tighten up face.
I mean, definitely interested in that. I love that you said wherever you are on your vanity journey.
For vanity.
I think that's fantastic. And so you could listen 24/7, but also maybe just having it on as background music for yourself, driving in the car, that kind of a thing.
Right. And here's the big key. The big key is that your body is conscious. We're not aware our body is conscious, but look at all the stuff it does. That is not automatic. There is intelligence there. And the body knows what it wants. That's why you have a craving for something, or you like a song. And particularly when you're younger, I mean, I remember loving a certain song, listening ad nauseum. And then one day I was tired of it. It's kind of like I ingested enough of that frequency and I no longer needed it. My personality is normally high on G, low on the musical note D. I will find that almost every song that I really love, it's in the key signature of D. In the key signature of D, I'm going to get a whole lot more Ds than any other note. So I am classically trained. You can show me 3 symphonies. I will always pick the one in D, and then I'll give you a pile of bullshit. And I don't know I'm bullshitting. I'll say, I like this one, and I'm so well trained, I can say because of this, they're all valid. But I don't think they're all true. I think that's just my thinking self. My body releases endorphins when I hear what my body needs. I need that D. I need it. I'm always short on it. I always pick it. I always love it. And then my mind fills in the gaps and justifies it. So I think if you pay attention to the music and it feeds you, it makes you feel good, keep listening. And keep listening until it's because once you've absorbed enough, then it's time to back off for a little bit. And how beautiful that, isn't that a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down? Just, what do you like? Body pick, turn your mind off, listen to your heart, and let your heart select. You like it? Listen.
I love it.
Pay attention. When you do pay attention, you absorb at a greater rate. Most of us have really busy lives. So you can just put it on the background a little longer and get the same dosage and not pay attention.
I'm thinking too, just out of my own nerdy interest. So I grew up and my parents were very into 60s, 70s classic rock. And so I feel like it's in my cells because when I was a child, the radio was on, we were listening to music. I hear these songs and they literally feel like home to me. And sometimes when I really need to there's a sink full of dishes, I don't want to do it, I will put on classic rock and then I can do the dishes. Like it just kind of puts me in a state of mind that, and I don't intellectually know, is it the rhythm, is it the tone, is it the instruments? I don't know. I just know how my body responds to it.
Well, first of all, my Lost Ways of Time book, I have a whole chapter on rock. And just like Mozart gives you a different gift than Bach, which I also have a chapter on, the Beatles give you a different gift than the Beach Boys. And I list them there. But the other thing I'm doing in my new book is that I'm suggesting that music creates anchors. And anchors in time.
Mm.
And so I got this because I do a lot of past life regressions. And I've noted if I have music on, the regression always matches the music. So the music's like a carrier wave. So if I have starry music with star sounds in it, I regress someone, they're back in some planet in the stars. If I put in a challenging part of the healing flower symphonies, they go right back into earth to a great period of trauma. So music anchors us back in time. And there was a study maybe about 10 years ago in nursing homes where one nursing home was a control. The other, they went back to the time of the youth of the residents. And this was dated, it was about the 40s then. So they listened to the music of their youth, just like you were saying, that's home to them. And then they dressed like that. And within 1 week, they had better eyesight, better posture. Their nutrition was better, their vitamins, I mean, everything across the board. Not only improved a little bit, but they were just listening to the music they had as a child. And they were pretending in some way that they were younger. So you're as young as you think. So one of the things I'm proposing in my Music of Time book is that one of the beautiful things about the music of your childhood, and it does kind of stick you in time. But as you grow older, it's like an anchor to when you were younger, when you were more youthful, and you get energy from that. And it does feel like home. And then you have a whole lifetime with that kind of dialing in your personality. And then you have another lifetime and you come in with a different genre. And just how, they describe Generation X or Generation Y, the music matches that.
Mm.
First. And it's kind of like when you look at the lost waves of time, it's like you can learn this lesson in China, this one in Sumeria, this one in India, this one in, the Americas, this one in the Druids. And if you look over time, you could put musical notes to them, you could put colors to them. And so we learn the lessons of red, which are action, passion, or the lessons of green, which is balance and growth. So and of course the tones as well. So it's just kind of beautiful to me. It's almost like reincarnating. It's like we reincarnate as different tones on a wind chime, and we learn the whole song. And it's a beautiful, and to me, I think it's really good to go back to your youth because it's youth in name, literally.
Wow.
And those people listening to the music of the youth improved all their health markers, and it was
Wow.
only a week.
Wow. This is just blowing my mind and making me jump into all kinds of other spaces and places, and questions are popping, but I'm mindful of our time together, and I would love for you to just kind of recap for us a couple of the really exciting things that you have coming up so that people can follow your journey. Of course, we're going to get all of this in the show notes. I have a very fun plan for myself today to just take my own deep dive into all of this music and kind of prescribe my own plan for myself for some of these, whether it's for restoring some youthfulness, addressing some muscle and joint. And I love the idea of the healing flower symphonies and going through all of those emotions. And I think so many people have not allowed themselves to experience all of their emotions. And the word that came to me was attunement, and which I think is to me that vibrational frequency of just being connected and set in yourself. And that feels like such a harmonizing state of being. And I love the idea that people who are either not feeling or who have not allowed a full range of feeling, suppressing some of those lower frequency emotions and not allowing those to kind of circulate and fade out. I love that. I think as a listener, there is just no limit to where you can go with this. So just give us like 2 to 3 highlights, Jill, for people who are now going to be following your journey.
Okay. whoever told us that music is entertainment only, has horns and a spiky tail and is a liar, and it makes us lambs to the slaughter. We are so controlled by sound vibrations and energy. And the beautiful part is let the music play you. You are literally an instrument, and play what you like. Feel really good. Feel free to get into it. And you can use the force of music, like let's say you have a sorrow and the music is resonating with the sorrow. It'll loosen it, and then you have to take the next step of saying, I'm done with this, and out it goes. It's so much easier than without music. And there's free music on my site, Jill's Wings of Light. And there's inflammation music, I believe. And I have inflammation and immune system boosting music that's free.
Awesome. I love it, Jill. I'm a fan already. I'm very excited. I've got some great quotes from you and some really good pieces of inspiration that I think will be personally healing for me, but I really hope that each listener is taking away some of these gems for their own life and their own journey. I just want to circle everybody back to when you were talking about all of us being part of one frequency and one spirit, and that not being separate, I think is such a huge part of healing for so many people. Our separateness makes us feel detached and sad and alone in a lot of those frequencies. But music, I think, can be such a great way to bring us all together and help us to feel more whole and connected. So I thank you so much for the start of what for many of us is now going to be a deep dive into the history of all this music, and certainly to enjoy your books and your music. Thank you for your generosity in all of these things that you're sharing. And any last words that you have for the listener?
You are music. So why not dance with it? Why not just embrace it and enjoy it?
Embrace and enjoy.
Literally. Yeah.
I love that, Jill. Thank you so much for being with me. Thank you so much, listener, for being here with us, for sharing this podcast. Listen, whoever you know, if you heard and you thought of somebody in your mind who could benefit from the information we shared in this podcast, please share it, like it, review the podcast so we can get more people listening to this great content. And I really encourage you to head over to Jill's website. Everything is down in the show notes, and please reach out if you need any more information. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time on the podcast. Bye for now.